Unit 8 Human Spaces Around the World by Alejandra, Cristina, Moira, Celia, and Sara. 1. Spatial distribution of the world's population. 1.1 Population and demographic sources. Population is the total number of inhabitants in a territory. It is studied in a number of scientific fields such as demography, geography, sociology, and economics. Geography studies the characteristics of a population within the area it inhabits, or in other words, the distribution, evolution, movements, and structure of its members.
Unequal distribution of population. Recently, the Earth's population has reached the 8,000 million people. Population distribution is analyzed according to population density, number of inhabitants in relation with the area of a territory in square kilometers.
Now I'm going to talk about the distribution factors, that is, the unequal distribution of the Earth population, that is caused by two main factors. We have physical factors that can be terrain, such as mountain condition population in distribution. In general, population is decreased as an altitude increase. Then the climate and water, that the temperate climates, coastal areas, and those with fresh water are areas suited to human settlements. And finally, we have soil types that are fertile soils, flavored population settlements, as they are suited to agriculture.
2. Natural population movement.
Population dynamics. The changes of population can be the result of two elements. The first one, natural change, are variations of population caused by natural events. It is the difference between the birth rate, which adds inhabitants, and the mortality rate, which subtracts them. Migratory change. These are the movements of a population to add from different places, the arrival of a population from another places, or migration adds inhabitants, and the departure of a population towards other places or immigration subtracts them.
Natality. The natality, commonly referred to as a birth rate, is the number of births that occur in a population over the course of a year. In order to measure it, two rates are used, the birth rate and the fertility rate. There is a number of factors that explain this difference between countries. Biological factors such as mother age, demographic and socioeconomic factors such as the percentage of young or elderly people, the age at which people get married, the cost of bringing up children, women's professional activity outside the home, access to contraceptives, and religious beliefs. Political factors, such as family planning of the economic support.
Mortality. The death or mortality rate is the number of deaths that occur in a population over the course of a year. It is measured by using three rates: the death rate, the infant mortality rate, and the life expectancy rate. There are likewise a number of factors that explain the difference between countries. Biological factors, such as genetic factors or gender, since women live longer than men. Demographic and socioeconomic factors, such as the percentage of young or elderly people, income, profession, cultural level, lifestyle, and diet. Political factors, such as the provision or lack of public satisfaction and access to clean drinking water and a welfare state that guarantees welfare.
3. The rate of natural increase and its differences.
3.1 Stage of the demographic transition theory. First phase, pre-industrial demographic regime. The birth rate is high and the mortality rate is also elevated. Then life expectancy is low, between 33 and 35 years old. As a result, the rate of natural increase of the population is low. Up until the 18th century, the Industrial Revolution, all countries on earth were in this situation. Second phase, demographic transition. The birth rate continues to be high. However, in contrast, the death rate falls sharply given an improved diet, healthcare, and hygiene. As a result, the demographic growth is very high. Today, developed countries went through this demographic transition between 1750 and 1950. Third phase, modern demographic system. The birth and fertility rates are low, owing to the use of contraceptives, the postponement of motherhood, women's employment outside the home, and the cost of bringing up a family. Both the general and infant mortality rates are low, given the high quality of diet, healthcare, and sanitation, and life expectancy is high, over 70 years old. Therefore, the rate of natural increase is lower. This is the regime encountered in developed countries since 1950. This fact produced the acceleration of the global population growth rate, although it would take you some years to become apparent.
4. Composition of population.
Composition according to gender. Gender composition is the ratio of men to women in a population. It is measured according to male and female birth.
Composition according to age. Age composition is the percentage of the young aged from 0 to 14, adults aged from 15 to 64, and elderly aged from 65 and over. Populations in a society. Young populations are typical of underdeveloped countries in sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, and Latin America, which are beginning their demographic transition. Adult populations are typical of emerging countries in Asia and Latin America, which are in advanced phase of demographic transition. Elderly populations are typically of wealthy countries in Europe and of the United States, Canada, and Japan, which have completed demographic transition.
4.3 Population pyramids. The gender and age composition for a place during a year is often represented as a graph in the form of population pyramid. This reflects whether a population is young, mature, or aging, and its recent demographic history. 5. Migratory movements.
Types. Emigration is the departure of the population from one place to another, while the immigration is the arrival of people at a new place. The differences between immigration and emigration is the net migration rate, the value of which can be positive or negative.
5.2 Cause of migration. There are several causes behind migration. First, we have forced migration, such as natural causes, political migrations, that are the persecution for political, religious, or racial motivations, and then we have economic migrations, that can be overpopulation, like lack of employment, and more.
Internal migration. Internal migration is the movement of a population within a state. The most important example is the rural exodus, or immigration from the countryside to the city.
6. International migration.
International migration. Today, international migrations have risen due to the imbalance in the population and economies between wealthy and poor countries, and the problems in transport. The characteristic features of these mass migrations are follows. South migration. It occurs between the less developed countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and the more well-developed countries in North Africa, Europe, Asia, and Oceania. South-South migration has risen since 2000. The countries of origin are the poorest countries, and the countries of destination are emerging countries with oil reserves, Persian Gulf, Saudi Arabia, or those with a certain amount of economic dynamism. Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia. Other forms of migration or less numeric significant are North-South migration, which usually relates to economic and humanitarian aid programs, and North-North migration, involving high qualified individuals in search of better employment.
7. Consequences of migration.
Areas of origin. Advantages: decrease in the population and birth rate, as emigrants are mostly young, decrease in employment, civil unrest and social conflicts, income of money sent by the migrants to their families. Disadvantages: loss of the young population as well and as aging society.
Destination areas advantages: rejuvenation of their population, supply of a cheap labor force, increase in cultural diversity. Disadvantages: problems of coexistence, xenophobia, racism, failure of immigrants to adapt to customs in their host countries, need to increase public service such as hospitals and schools.
8. Future of world's population.
Population and fertility. The population of our planet will reach 9.6 billion people in 2050 and 10.9 billion in 2100. The greatest area of growth will be found in the less developed countries. More than half of the population will come from just a few Asian countries: India, China, Pakistan, Indonesia, and Bangladesh, and above all Africa, Nigeria, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Uganda, and Ethiopia. Worldwide fertility will decrease. The low fertility of developed countries will increase slightly, and in less developed countries it will fall.
7.2 Life expectancy and aging. Population aging will affect all countries as a result of the fall in the birth rate and longer life expectancy.
8.3 Migration and cities. The rural exodus will continue to rise, particularly in less developed countries. As a result, in 2050, the majority of the planet's inhabitants will live in cities, which will result in environmental decline and shortages of food and drinking water.